Hello, hello. Welcome to our episode 5 of Beers with VCs, where we have casual conversations about the less talked about aspects of venture capital and startup building. We are your hosts, Sabrina Passman and Simon Lancaster, and today we are very excited to be joined by Benny Buehler, founder and CEO of Velo3D. Velo3D is a revolutionary metal 3D printing company that has made impossible to manufacture parts possible. Their technology is used by players in the space like SpaceX, and Benny has built the startup from inception in 2014 through IPO in 2021 and has broken many rules of building startups in the process. We are honored to have him on. Benny, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Benny.
Thank you, Simon.
Welcome. So to kick us off, let's go around the room and talk about which beers we're drinking today. You want to start it off?
Yeah, I will always go for Hefeweizen. If I can get a German Hefeweizen, even better. Cheers.
Love it.
Hollander.
Cheers.
It's a good one. Yeah. Classic.
Simon, you go next.
Okay, I've got a special one today. It's a Leffe, which is a Belgian blonde Abbey ale. Did a little bit of research. Actually, I should have known this. It says it on there. It's almost 800 years old, this exact recipe, which is crazy. 6.6% alcohol. So looking forward to enjoying this.
I have the babyest beer in the group. Big Wave Golden Ale.
Nice.
Not sure about the percent alcohol, but
Classic
delicious
American
island vibes.
well.
Yes.
Nice.
Very
Cheers.
awesome. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Amazing. Well, Benny, we're so excited to have you on. And there are so many things that impressed me about your journey. But to sort of set the stage, I'd love for you to tell the audience about your origin story. Why did you decide to leave your comfortable, well-paying job to start a new startup in your career, and walk us through that transition and that process?
Sure. So I'm an Israeli. You can hear it by my accent. And I spent the 20s of my life in the technology unit of the Israeli intelligence. And people from my unit have been starting startups very, very extensively. It was very common. And when I was in the unit, I was really into starting my own company. I actually decided to stay in the company much longer than most people. And by the time I left, I already had 2 kids. And my wife said, absolutely no, you're going to bring money home to start companies. So at some point, my kids got to the age that they started kind of to leave the house. And at that stage, I basically asked my wife about doing this, and the agreement was you have 6 months to go jobless, and if in 6 months you don't get a salary, you go and get a job. And that's what we did.
That ultimatum is such high pressure.
Yes.
It's good to have an encouraging partner like that.
Yes.
Put just enough pressure to make it happen. Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's the managing director. Yes.
The whole inspiration behind the whole company. That's incredible. So how did you structure those 6 months? I mean, did you have an idea from the get-go at the beginning of that, or did you sort of find it in that 6-month period?
Yeah, so I actually, before leaving my cushy job, a few months before that, I was going pretty systematically on the process of finding an idea. And I worked in a VC for 2 years before starting the company. And during these 2 years, I stumbled upon a lot of kind of interesting opportunities. And the first thing that I did is I made a list of kind of 30 business ideas that I'm contemplating, where I basically found a business opportunity to do something interesting. So basically throughout a month, I wrote down all the ideas and then didn't spend too much time on them, just wrote another idea and another idea, and they accumulated, and I had about 30 of them by the end of the month. And then I decided the next month that what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and just pick 3 of them, the ones that look most promising, and spend a lot of time on those. And then pick the one, kind of basically do a business plan for them if you want. So do the due diligence on this and see if there is a combination of market needs / technical business opportunity, kind of technical problem to solve. And the result of this was that none of these 3 ideas turned out to be a good idea. But as I was kind of finalizing this, one of the partners in the VC I worked in came to my office and he told me about a big need in additive manufacturing, in metal additive manufacturing. And he told me that companies really struggled. This one specifically was our portfolio company that's really struggled at the time to print. In this case, it was parts for rocket engine. And 3D print them. And those were very small parts, but they had real challenges making them. So I started to look into this, and that's how I actually realized how limited the technology is and how difficult it is to actually make things useful with that. And that was very different than what I thought from the outside of 3D printing. So I thought on 3D printing, most of us think that you come up with an idea, you press on a button, you send it to the printer, and a few hours later you get the part. And that's quite true in polymers and plastics, but it's extremely far from the truth in metal. In metal, it's really hard work and there's a lot of limitations. So when I discovered that, I realized, wow, there is such a big opportunity here, and that's what I want to do. So
that's incredible. Is it mostly I guess your background in physics really influenced the interest into really exploring and delving into this field? I feel like this could have just been a research project in itself, and then you turned it into a company. How did you decide to, this was the specific problem that you wanted to spend, the next 10 years of your life solving? Is it just the market opportunity that made it really appealing, or was there something else sort of inherent to your inspiration for it?
The naivete of founders. I thought that I will have a product in the market. Seriously. So I'm a physicist. I like to work on complex, multifaceted problems, like multi-physics problems. I kind of think of myself as a system engineer, and I like to work on complex systems. And that was clear that this is a very complex system with a lot of physics involved in that. So that would be very interesting. The business opportunity here was very obvious. So the business opportunity, the potential impact was high, and the market was very, very nascent. And one of the things that kind of someone told me that some time ago is you kind of want to be in a market as it's emerging, right? So when you go to a market and it's already fully developed and there are big players and there's already a supply chain and ecosystem, it's kind of too late very often. So when you go and things are forming and there is a lot of chaos and there is a lot of confusion, it's a great place to be in. And metal 3D printing in 2014 was exactly in this place. It was just starting to emerge.
Got it.
So it was.
I feel this is hugely inspirational to a lot of our audience, particularly because our audience strays a little more technical engineering sense. And we do see a lot of founders come through that have very technical ideas, but don't understand how to translate that into a full business model and actually write a full business plan. I'd imagine that your experience doing venture before starting the business definitely helped, but do you have any advice for founders that have a very specifically technical idea that they love and they know they want to work on, but don't quite know how to make that transition?
Yeah, so, something that is super common, almost to the point of cliche, right, is you want to identify a business problem, not a technical problem, right? So you want to identify a need, a business need, a business problem to solve, not a technical problem. And kind of historically, for a lot of the things that, a lot of the ideas I consider these were technical ideas that were kind of looking for a business need. This one was there is a clear business need. I actually didn't know when I came into that what's the solution. I really didn't know how I'm going to solve that. I knew what's the problem. I knew what's the business problem. I could formulate the business problem into a technical problem. I just didn't know how to solve the technical problem. I kind of started from a blank slate. And I would say that that's actually a pretty healthy place for a technical founder to be. So if you can get yourself to a point where you have a very clear business problem, that you can formulate it into a technical problem, that you have no idea how to solve, but it's clearly within the domain expertise of the things you can solve, that's a great place to be. If you can formulate a technical problem that you don't know how to solve, but it's clearly outside of your domain, that's probably not a good place to be either. But these three combinations, I think, is a good place to be, because that's kind of puts you in a place where you are trying to solve very hard problem, which is a good thing. But at the same time, you are not led by infatuation to a technical solution. And you're flexible about changing the solution as you go.
That makes a lot of sense. And to that end, I'm very curious about your advice for founders in terms of fundraising. I think a lot of times when a very technical founder approaches the VC world for the first time, they dive really deep into the details of the technical problem that they're solving and why it's so cool, rather than actually showcasing the broader business sense of what they're trying to sell. Can you walk us through how you approached fundraising for the first time as a very technical founder?
Yeah, so there are a few aspects here. So the first one is when I did our seed round, I was I deliberately went and got investment from a very broad group of investors. And so this was seed investing, right, in convertible notes. And that was before SAFE was popular, but today it would be called SAFE. And one of the things that I made is, because of this, a lot of investors that were there, none of those investors had right of first refusal to participate in the Series A. And none of those investors was dominant to the point that if they didn't invest in the Series A, that would create a problem raising the Series A, because there is this expectation, particularly if you have big investors in your seed. Yep. Those investors invest to participate in the Series A. If they don't participate in the Series A, then why should I from the outside do that? Right? They know something that I don't. And basically this gets into a point where you kind of lose control of the Series A, because the insiders now can dictate at which term and when you do the Series A. So from that perspective, kind of having a very broad coalition of investors without anyone having the kind of signaling power was very helpful. And then when we did the Series A, basically you have to solve a problem at every stage of the fundraising, so that you can basically talk and you say, okay, this is what I took the money for the previous stage, this is what I made, now I'm taking this money, this is what I'm going to accomplish with this money so that I can raise the next round. You have to be very clear about this, because really you don't want to raise the money that you need to become profitable. You want to raise the money that you need so that you can accomplish something, so that you can reach more money.
The next major milestone and raise at better terms than you could if you were to bring that money in today. Yeah,
exactly. So in a sense, you don't want to raise more money than you need, right? You want to raise a little bit more money than you need, because you're always overconfident and you're always optimistic about what it will take. But you don't want to raise too much, because raising too much means either too much dilution or too high valuation, which could mean even a difficulty for raising in the next round. So
that's such an important point, because I think the founders of today are very enamored with not just the large names, but also getting giant checks from the large names as early as possible, basically for clout, saying like, I raised 10 million in like 3 months from, A, B, and C. And what you're alluding to is that is not how to build a successful, necessarily venture backable business. If your whole goal is to achieve profitability, making sure that your milestones are small and bite-sized and maintaining control of your company and your vision is paramount to actually being able to make it through your next raises, actually to hit the IPO finish line. I think that's definitely. was that just inherent to how you knew you were going to run your business from the get-go? Did you learn that from somewhere, or was it you didn't really have any mistakes along that process? It sounds like the way that you have described it. How did you know that that was the right way to do it?
So I worked for 2 years in VC and specifically in Khosla Ventures, and Vinod Khosla is extremely deliberate and extremely thoughtful about this, right? So he talks about kind of this curve of risk reduction that basically in the world, in the journey of a startup, every stage you have to be very deliberate. What's the risk that you want to reduce? And then focus maniacally just on that. Don't do anything else. Get that, and then go and do the next one. And basically, as he draws that, the risk is dropping, the investment in the company is increasing, and its value is increasing kind of at the same time. And this, I heard him repeat this enough times to the point that I actually understood that. And, I understood that viscerally. And one of the things that helped me to understand that viscerally is seeing what happens to companies that are kind of trying to grow too fast or trying to raise money too much or losing focus in the process. So it was a great school for me to kind of see, literally being able to see through other people's successes and through other people's mistakes.
Totally.
So I really absorbed that viscerally, this lesson.
We're going to highlight and underscore that one after the notes of this podcast. I think that's a very, very important point. I want to move on from, after you got your first fundraise done, I was really inspired by the way that you told me you built your product from the get-go. There's a common understanding in hardware that there are no shortcuts. There's no way to actually accelerate the process to get to a next milestone, but you were able to. You were able to prove out an idea very quickly. Can you walk us through that? Right when you got funding, how did you prove out your conceptual process, and how did that go?
So luck is a very important element, right? And for us, we were lucky quite a few times. And if we'll have time, we'll talk about some other events of luck. But
it's amazing how lucky, hardworking people are, Benny.
So I think that the non-lucky people in hardware, their names are not known. Those that are known, it's because they are lucky. The first luck that we had was we planned to raise $2 million in our seed, and at the end we raised just over $4 million because there were more people that were interested in partnering with us and helping us than we planned. And our original, we had a hypothesis to how to solve the problem, and we intended to build a test stand to test this hypothesis. And for doing this, we would have to basically build initially a partial test stand and then a full 3D printer. And that was a lot of work to do. And then when we got more money, we said, you know what, instead of doing this or in parallel for building a test stand, why don't we just buy a commercial off-the-shelf 3D printer and try to adapt it to implement the hardware and software solution that we thought of doing. And but as we were developing this, if you want, upgrade or this modification that we plan to do, we got the hardware, the product, this off-the-shelf product, literally within 3 or 4 weeks after we got funded. So we kind of scrambled the building, we scrambled the facility that was needed, and we got the machine. And we really bought the machine that the supplier was able to deliver to us in 3 weeks after we placed the order. We got the machine, and then we actually started to explore the question, so why these people have the limitations that they have? What's the physical reasons for that? Because we had hypotheses, but now we don't have to hypothesize. We have a machine that we actually can experiment with. And it took us exactly 3 weeks to understand that we were barking in the wrong tree. So all our ideas were completely wrong. All our ideas, all our solutions, all our kind of intellectual building.
Everything that every hypothesis that you had before the raise and that you're raising upon, you were able to test within a period of like less than 6 weeks. And the whole premise at which you were building your company was basically disproven, which seems terrifying, but but you were able to get to that so quickly.
But the good news is we were able to convert the original problem to a set of 4 problems that we identified. These are the problems we actually have to solve. And then we started solving those problems. And then we very systematically started to solve these problems. And some of them, it turned out it was easier to solve, and some of them it was much harder to solve. And when we solved 3 of the 4 problems, we raised our Series A with the expectation that it will take us, based on the rate at which we solved the first 3 problems, it will take us another 3, 4, 5 months to solve the last problem. We knew it was hardest of this because we worked on that all this time and did solve, but we had a lot of ideas how to solve that. And we were open about that with the VCs, and we said, okay, we solved 3 of the 4. We have the last 4. It's the most difficult. We have some ideas to solve that. We think it will take us 6 months, and then we'll go and we'll start building the product. We raised the Series A, and literally 6 weeks after that, we've completed the evaluation of the ideas that we had to solve this problem.
That's amazing. So you were very good at time estimation. I'm sure all your VCs were very happy with that. Oh, okay.
We evaluated, and none of them worked.
Oh, that was when you found none of the. Oh, okay, it's the opposite. So all of your plans threw out the window then.
Yeah, I was really not that good. So we basically had to go to our board 6 weeks after we raised the Series A and said, we are at a deadlock. We don't know what we do. We don't know how we're going to solve this problem. Instead of developing the product that we wanted to do next, we are now going to go into a first principles R&D, mode, where I don't know how long it will take us to go from that. All I know is that we need to measure velocity and experimentation, and we just focused on velocity of experimentation. And it did take us about 4 or 5 months to actually get to the point that we said, yeah, we think we have that. And then we thought we had a solution, and we basically took the ideas that we had, and we started to build a system concept around that. And we started to go to different prospective customers and said, this is the system concept that we have. Would you want to be a beta customer? And we had 4 people that told us yes. And when we had 4 people that basically we were able to sign kind of an evaluation deal with them for our beta system, that's when we raised the Series B. So at the end, there was a happy ending here, but there was a
extreme panic for a period of time.
Benny, I'm curious, speaking of customers, at what point did you start engaging with customers? Was it while you were still hypothesizing and to determine like what the real business problem was? Before seed, after seed? Yeah, I'm curious there.
Yeah, it's actually a really important point. People say, the concept customer-centric. We are crazy customer-centric. So we started talking with customers before we started the company. As soon as we started the company, and as soon as we started to characterize the problems, we started to talk with customers about, okay, so let's imagine that we do that. What would you want to do with that?
Oh, wow.
What are the type of parts that you will want to do that? That was actually very illuminating, because what you find is that if you are in the lab and you're trying to solve a problem like we are trying to solve in isolation, you are trying to solve a very, very difficult mathematical problem. It's a physical problem, but it has a mathematical characterization, and you're trying to solve a very difficult mathematical problem. What you find is that in reality, No one needs that. What people have is very specific set of needs. And if you combine all the needs of all the hypothetical customers and the real customers together, you may get to something that is close to this mathematical problem, but you don't need to be there. There is a lot of very concrete problems that are very, very partial subset in terms of what you need to solve, that you can provide value to customers that don't require you to go all the way to the ultimate solution. So as we started to have these discussions with customer, what exactly are the things that they need us to solve for them, we were able to shorten dramatically the time to value, and we were able to focus on the things that our first customers needed, so that we can create value for them, very concrete value, solve very specific business problems, while leaving a lot of things open that for now our customers didn't need it, and later on we closed a lot of those things. This actually became the way we kind of manage ourselves as a company. And at some point you can ask your question. The question is like, is it a smart strategy? Is it the right way to go? Is it a scalable strategy? And these are valid questions. But these are very important ways in which you can build the company and build the business. You're focusing on exactly the problems that your customers need you to solve for them.
Right. I love the example when you gave us the tour of your facility, when you guys were really just trying to cut down to bare bones and essentials. You determined after talking with the customers that your machines won't ship with enclosures, which you still do that until today?
We still do this today.
They look really cool, like you're seeing all the guts. But yeah, maybe you could just talk about that for a minute, because I think it's a cool example.
This is one of the things that we have, the most controversial in the company. Because a lot of our people really don't like that. A lot of our salespeople don't like that, because when you look at that, it's like, what are you selling me here? But basically, we had a contract for our second product. It's a big contract. This is a customer that already has been using our first line of product. They've bought a few tens of millions of dollars of this product and been using it very successfully, and they needed us to go and do the next step and make a bigger product with much more capabilities. And they gave us a big contract to develop that and to supply them, and they were on a very tight schedule. So we had the call with their CEO. Their CEO is Elon Musk, right? So this is SpaceX, and he asked us a very simple question: are you putting efforts on things that we don't need to make our parts? And I said, on the edges, but yes. And he said, don't. Just focus on the things that we need. I don't care about all the other things. I don't care about the things that we don't need to make parts. Just make us the things that we need to make parts. You can do the other things later. So 20 customers later, we still didn't do this. And we didn't do that because we still have much more important things to do. And the enclosures of the system, we kind of had rendering of those, but we never actually finished the design of them, and we never actually implemented them because we have other things that we needed to do. And it's kind of like, wow, really? You don't have, the little resources that you needed to do that? Well, the answer is actually not. We have this backlog of all the things that we need to do, and you start looking at that. It's like, this is more important, and this is more important. So this quarter, we are not going to do it. The next quarter, we again didn't do it, and we never did. Because none of the customers actually cares about that.
Yeah, because they're going into industrial settings where people need to have safety precautions anyway, just in general. Well, okay, cheers to that. That's a pretty cool story. Cheers to
I
Elon,
love that. It's incredible. And I think that also lends to the common advice always is to, once you get your product to a certain stage, you have to develop your brand, and you have to make sure that your brand, really showcases like the ideas of what the company was standing for and all these things. But I think like at every point in time, you took a different approach, which I think was very smart and makes a lot of sense given the type of founder that you are. Basically, you asked a very simple question, like, is it needed or is it not? And if not, then like, I'm not going to do it. And I think that also, I loved the story that you talked about when you went to Ferrari. Would you mind sharing that story for the podcast today? And you're talking about.
Well, without mentioning names.
Okay. We can skip over the story too if it's too much.
Yeah, but basically, the thing is, there are companies that can benefit strategically from what we do in a very big way, and they can benefit strategically. Their strategy is aligned with the things that we can do, and where we can see how they can benefit from that. And I'm trying to align our salespeople with this idea of let's try to understand how we can have a transformational impact on the customer. And if we can, and if we understand that, then we can ask the next question. So if this is the transformational impact we can have for you, how can you imagine not doing business with us? And the answers are very valid, and there are a lot of good reasons. But then let's address those answers. It's much easier to address them when you have the very strong foundations, like how can I make a big impact on your business? And if you go and you don't see a way that you can make a big impact on this customer, it's not worth wasting their time. And this was the case with this customer, right? So everyone wants to see your employer supporting a big brand name, a champion in your country, right? So our local salesperson, wanted to be very proud with us helping this company, but the reality is we can't. So if we can,
I think leaning into like what is the actual value proposition of the products that you're building and leaning into that and not straying from it. Like the vision of the company is centered around the value that you're providing to your customers. And if it's outside of that realm, then there's no need to expand beyond that.
Yep. We had a guy that worked for about 20 years in orthopedic implants. And orthopedic implants is one of the best use cases for additive manufacturing. But people have been doing a pretty good job on that already. And they have a lot of degrees of freedom to play with the design so that the existing machines can actually produce parts really well. So we brought this person to basically understand if there is a value proposition of our technology in medical implants, in orthopedic implants. And he spent about 9 months proving that the answer is no. It's kind of proving himself out of job because, and it's like, and that's what we did, right? It's like, okay, so then, we separated amicably, but it's like, if there's no value proposition, I don't want to sell into this business. And 5 years later, I'm not in this business at all.
Totally. How do you go about, like, I guess, do you let the customers find you, or do you mostly, based off of your understanding of your product, understand who to outreach to? Like, how did the customer acquisition process work for your technical company?
Excellent question, which hints to another big mistake that I did. So when I was early on, I just refused the word marketing. The word marketing was just something that was, and I didn't want to hear. And I literally believed that if we're just going to make a great product, the word will spread and people will find us, and everything will be fine. It's like the product will sell itself. And you have to be a crazy, stupid engineer to believe that. The world just doesn't work like that. No matter how great the product is, no matter what you're selling, people have to be. And over time, I kind of gradually graduated from this company will never need marketing to we are not doing marketing, we are doing education. We're doing customer education. But for those hard-nosed engineers, that's marketing. And that's exactly what marketing is, right? So we are doing both. We spend a lot of resources to educate the very broad community of engineers, design engineers, that their products can benefit from the capabilities that we do. And we have a lot of people that find us this way.
Mhm.
We also have a list of industries and companies in those industries where we know that there are applications that we are good at, and that we basically target those. And we target them in a digital way, and we target them in a personal approach as well. So there are, so the answer is all of the above. Right?
Yeah.
So you have to build your pipeline with all the methods available to you. In shows, right? When you go to a show, are you approaching people or people coming to you? Well, you make yourself almost impossible to me, so people will come to you, right?
Mhm.
And
Benny,
go ahead.
So sorry, it's a really fascinating topic, by the way, and I think particularly for deep tech startups with novel frontier technologies that require inherently education of engineers, customers. And basically, like what I'm hearing is, well, instead of marketing in traditional sense, you have different levels of education. Is it essentially like different stages in the funnel will have different depths of education as well? And
Exactly.
my question is, what have you found to work? Like, what avenues or asset types have you found to work best? Because this is like a really hot topic for
Yeah.
portfolio companies and founders.
So we use LinkedIn a lot for distribution of content. We found that we also there are other digital media that work, but in general, what we found is videos are addictive, or maybe I should say they are viral, right? So videos, it's easier to get the viral content in video. I would say text is helpful when people are already interested, right?
Already
Text,
interested, yeah. That's right.
and then they can go and learn deeper. So I think these two layers are really important. If you want to attract someone that that doesn't know yet, video is the best media.
Yeah.
If you want to get build deeper.
Yeah, this the same as what we typically recommend. And then I'm guessing like bottom of funnel to convert to a sale or even post sale, it's like personal interaction. Like you have applications engineers that will interact and kind of help bring up customer teams.
Yeah, it's actually important aspect that when you are making a complex sale, you actually can have as many as 10, 12, 15 people in the company involved in the sale, right? So you have people on the sales side, you have application engineers, you have business development, you have engineering, you have customer support, you can have operations. So you have a good few people working with the customer. And it's important to identify the different people at the different levels on the customer that would feel that.
Totally.
So all of those are important.
Awesome. Yeah, great. Thanks for that little mini deep dive on business development.
Something super useful for a lot of our startups, especially as it's hard to, often the value proposition is so easy for the engineering team to understand, but so hard to convert that into, I guess, the customers with the power to make purchases, and like figuring out how to bridge that gap between, I guess every customer can feel new also because they all have very unique things that they need and ways to use our technology that are specific to them, and understanding like what their individual ROI is, I'd imagine, is a large part of actually completing the sale. Is that something that is a big part of the process and sort of these later stage?
To the business need, right? The business has to have a real problem. It can't just be the engineer being like curious and interested about it.
Exactly.
So yeah, go ahead, Benny.
It's the same thing, right? It starts with what is the big business problem? What is the strategic need where they can benefit, and the interesting part is very often it requires us to go and to identify an element or multiple elements, technical elements that are missing. Then we have to fill them, right, and to solve for this customer. And for us, for a long time, this was a blessing and a curse, because we kind of were always identifying those needs with the customers that we needed in order to expand the customer base and solve more problems. And we were like, yeah, we'll do that. And of course, you want that? Sure, we'll do that. And these were all important customers and good opportunities, but you just go and you overstretch yourself. And that's up to them. So this is the dilemma, right? So it's like, yeah, you can do that, but you have to be very careful. And over time, you learn how to be more strategic about that. And initially, it was hard for us. I think for a long time, it was hard for us. I think we are getting better in this now.
Yeah. Definitely.
Just one more thing about marketing is we were talking about marketing, and I like to talk about the mistakes that we made. And one mistake that we made, and I've seen a lot of companies make these mistakes, and I want every founder to be aware and ask themselves, am I making this mistake as well? A lot of customers, it took me time to realize that when they walk by our booth in shows, they mistook us for what we did. They didn't realize that what we did is what we did, because our booth didn't, it was obvious to us. It was not obvious to them. And I actually go a lot in shows, and I kind of make it as a test. Is you go in the hallway, how many seconds do you need to realize what a company does? Because usually you pass by a booth in about 5 seconds. If within these 5 seconds you don't get that, you will not stop.
You lost the opportunity. Yep.
So if you misunderstood, and some companies I walk by and it's like, what exactly does this company does? I don't know. I don't have the time to check.
Yeah.
So I think making sure.
How did you fix that?
So when I realized that, we are super focused about what's the message that we want to deliver, what it is that we want the customer to think about us. And then we thought about what are the most obvious cues that we can put that no one will be able to miss. That's what and then we put that on very, very big, like almost, Velo3D for dummies.
Like comically large, very obvious.
Yeah. Like, they're obvious, stupid. It's like, this is a stupid message. Why do you put that? No one. And then there is a deeper message underneath that. But
totally.
It's like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
We're not doing something else. Don't mistake us.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Even with customer meetings and pitches that I sit in on with portfolio companies, frequently, if the founders said it a million times, sometimes you just like inherently think that it's a known thing, but it's not. Just because you've told 1,000 niche people doesn't mean that the next customer you talk to knows it. So really getting into the habit of regurgitating the basics every single time, not skipping over it, not like abbreviating, etc. Yeah, it's a really good point.
I think there's been so much growth by you throughout the course of the company, and I want to highlight that it is very rare to have someone who has founded the company still as CEO post IPO. And I'd love to maybe just high level learnings of like maybe how your skill sets have changed from when you founded the company to now. And marketing certainly is a great learning, but I'm wondering if there are others that you'd like to share.
Yeah. Being a CEO and not get fired yet is the best business goal that you can have. So basically, since 2016 or so, right? Every year, I basically was getting like the 101 course in another profession, right? So marketing, sales, operations, finance, HR. It's like every year you go and you build another layer of depth, and I am far from learning everything that there is to learn in this profession. Far, far, far from this. But I've never been in the same job for anything remote close to 9 years. But this doesn't feel like I'm doing this for 9 years because the job is changing so much, and the good news is I have a lot of really great people that working in different professions that I'm learning from, and I had the opportunity to have a good number of mentors that I could engage with, but. To me, kind of the way I think about this, and I think about this as a physicist, but I think this is also a very good and useful lesson for CEO. I believe that you, as if you want to be a successful professional, you can't have black boxes in your vision. So what I mean by that is, whether you're working in some product and you're collaborating with other people as an individual contributor, or you're a manager, or you're a CEO, there are parts of the business or parts of the product or parts of the technology that are not natural for you to understand. If they are within your peripheral vision and they are affecting the decisions that affect you, you have to understand that. Anything that you don't understand, anything that is a black box like that, will bite you, and will bite you in a really good way. And I really believe that it's like, if it's outside, the universe of visibility, right? If it's beyond the horizon of visibility, it's like there's nothing you can do about that. But if this is something that you see, you have to understand that. And that was actually very helpful for me, kind of very motivating for me to learn all these things that I don't know. But I also think that a lot of people have this bias to, this is interesting and this is boring. And I think the definition of boring is something that you don't understand. Everything that you understand is not boring. There's nothing that you understand that is boring. If you don't understand the complexity of that, it's boring. The moment you start to understand that, I didn't find anything that is boring yet.
Fascinating.
That is such a really, really. We're going to use that learning for sure with a lot of our founders as we coach them through the process. Yeah, always. So definitely adaptability sounds like first and foremost is critical for being able to move through the different phases of being a founder / CEO. And then, always learning, but actually always being able to find the things that you don't know actually interesting enough to engage and really get deep and down and dirty with them, so to speak, with all of the different nuances of how it influences the larger aspects of the business. Really fascinating learning. To that end, this is something that we touched upon at the very end of our conversation last time, and I'd love to expand upon it a little bit more. Your learnings as a CEO in terms of curating a company culture. And I think that as any new CEO or founder starts their company, they have they've worked in teams before, but that's actually quite different than creating an environment for other people to, be excited to come to work today. Can you walk us through the transition of how you thought about, I guess, the team at large as you graduated from seed all the way through IPO?
Yeah. So the first struggle that I had is, as a physicist, and just mind you, physicist is one notch worse of an engineer in terms of kind of
I would not say.
But in terms of kind of the correlation between that and a business person, right? It's like, so as a physicist, the term culture always confused me. What is culture? What is exactly culture? What people mean by culture? And I like very simple definitions, and I like very simple concepts that as a very physical person, it's easy for me to understand. So to me, culture, I basically, at some point, I realized that a very easy definition of culture is behaviors. It's the behaviors, the things that we do, the habits, and the behaviors and habits that we expect others to do. So this network of behaviors and habits that we do and expect others to do, that's what becomes our culture. And I think that that's a useful framework to think about culture for those very concrete people that are afraid of, big, fuzzy, fluffy words. So for us, we basically ended up converging. So we had a number of. So the first principle was we are going to have very small number of values. We're not going to have 9 values. We're not going to have 15 values. We're going to have very small number of values. The largest number of things that a human being can remember is 3. So I said, this is not going to be more than 3, so we have to pick that. So initially, by the way, we had 4 or 5, but we dropped them to 3. It took us about 1.5 years of iterating on that we kind of established something, and then we thought, is it really working for us? And we tried to really do a lot of things in a daily basis that will reinforce these values, that were manifestations of these values. That was for us the thing. Are there things that we can do that will basically reinforce those values? And are there things that we can do on a weekly basis, we can do as a team? Are there ways that we can kind of build our processes that will reflect that? And a lot of those things we did. So as an example, we are a very collaborative company. So it was really important for us to build a collaborative structure. So we, our bonus was always built around company goals. There was never individual bonuses in the company. So all the bonuses had always company goals. And if you think about this, if you basically build your bonus around company goals as opposed to around personal goals, well, that will drive collaboration. Because now
everyone's motivated.
Right now, we're trying to do the same thing.
Cross-functionally, teams are going to support each other's smaller goals. Yeah, that's always a challenge as you grow.
And it becomes really quickly a challenge as different departments have different goals, right, and different bonuses around them. Now it's like, how do you deal with when goals are in conflict? So the next kind of example of this is we really made an effort to scramble our teams so that every person is surrounded by people from other groups. And the reason for that was, and this was a nightmare of a fight that I had with every executive staff member, because initially the claim was, I have my software developers, they need to work together. Come on, like you're going to split them, they're not going to work together. My team needs quiet. I cannot be in a big one open space. It's like, yeah, you'll be okay. I can get you $100 Bose noise cancellation headsets. And then the other thing is, if you have an engineer sitting near a finance person, this engineer may periodically have some conversation with the finance person. If this engineer is 10 meters away from the other engineer, they will find the time to talk with each other. But if this finance person and engineer are 10 meters away from each other, I guarantee you they will never talk to each other, ever. So, and then before you know that, the engineers are thinking that the finance people have horns on their head, and the finance people are sure that the engineers are spending lavishly without spending, thinking too much time about how much things cost, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we, from the time the company was very small and very poor, we always funded lunches here. And we always had the rule that there's only one place where people can eat, and that's in the public space. You are not allowed to bring food to your desk, ever.
Oh, wow. That's a rule.
That's a rule. So we basically have a place like a separation, and there is signs, no food allowed beyond this point. And this includes conferences rooms, right? You cannot bring to the conference rooms, right? So there's only one conference room where we can have lunch in every building. And that's like, if you have a meeting during lunch, like, yeah, you can eat there, but otherwise. And I follow the same rules, right? So I don't bring my lunch to other conference rooms. And periodically people are like, you're running. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll eat at 3 p.m. It's fine. But that's, and the idea behind that was, you have this public space, A person comes, there is a table, there were some people sitting there, mixed groups. They sit with them, and now they're talking with people not from their work group, right? And they get to know each other. And it's amazing how many pieces of information people find that are relevant to their work in these informal meetings. So you force these conversations and that brings collaboration. So you have all these little things that you basically say, okay, that's important for you. So how do you promote that in real life, in a daily basis? When the company was young, I was really maniacal about, this point that, it's 6 or 7 p.m. There's no one in the office. Come on, are you guys kidding me? We're a startup. We may be running out of money in 4 months. Let's go and get it going. Today is Sunday. How come no one is coming to work with me? And what I found, it took me a long time. What I found is that if the goals are clear, if the needs are clear, and if the stakes are real high, you don't have to worry about this. Just people are giving everything they have, and they come. And this has been a big topic in 2015, 16, 17. And I have now leaders and people working for them that they understand the goal, they are committed. This is just not a topic. When people need to go and they need to do the work, they need to do the work. And people, go and they leave relatively early. They go and they have dinners with their families. And then you see the emails start coming in at 8, 9, 10 p.m. It's like when people need to do their
and then you feel so proud.
No, and not necessarily proud, but you feel, I don't want people to work at 10 p.m. That's not the intent, but it's when you need people to do something, and they will do it. And
exactly.
And it's like, I really don't want people to work 80 hours a week. That's not the intent. And we actually go and we try to avoid that. But what you feel proud about is that when there is a crisis, people go and jump on that without you having to get in any involvement. That's what really.
That's extremely powerful, and I think it's very challenging for new managers, particularly, to not micromanage, to have every single little aspect of each of the deliverables vetted out. And instead, what you're mentioning, Benny, is that if you instill a culture in which collaboration, everyone is working together towards these larger goals, and everyone is equally motivated to achieve, then they will put in the effort. They don't need to be micromanaged for them to reach the goals. And I think that's incredibly powerful. That's definitely the type of work environment that I also personally thrive in as well. And it sounds like you've cracked it at your company.
And you have to trust your leaders, and you have to trust your people, and you have to let go. And when you let go, you find that people pick up. If you keep what's going on, it's then you get the opposite effect of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. We will absolutely be sharing. There's so many little nuggets throughout our conversation today that I am very excited to share with all of our founders. We are at the end of the hour, so I want to enter into our final question. And that is, Benny, who has been the most impactful person in your professional journey so far?
Yeah, so the name of the person is Ofer Shapiro, and he was an officer in my military unit. I was 22 when he became my boss. He was 22 in 1 month.
Wow.
So he is 1 month older than me. And he is a very remarkable person. So he is the most creative and daring, what I would call that ship turner that I have seen. So he can take a massive, aircraft carrier, and with the force of his will, turn it around. And I've seen him doing this a few times. I've seen him doing this a few times. 2 or 3 times in our unit and in the time that we served together. And I've seen him doing this after that, because we kept really kind of conversations in other places in his professional career after that. And he really inspired me in a lot of ways. And one of there are so many things that he told me when we worked together, kind of as we were young kids at the time, right? I was 22, he was 22. By the time we stopped working together, he was 27. But he was he really had this revolutionary mindset. And kind of one of the ideas that he told me that he was really committed to, he said, when you are working on improving something by 1 or 2%, you should know you're working on the wrong problem. And that's clearly not true for a lot of people, but that's kind of describing him as a person, right? That's definitely kind of, not everyone can take that and apply that, but that kind of shows you the perspective that he has, and that is that there is a bigger thing for me to do than spend in trying to improve something by 1 or 2%. And in all the cases that he worked on this type of problems, he kind of stepped back and found a way to improve something 3x, 10x, and by completely rephrasing the question. He got me to believe that such an opportunity exists in every business and in every environment. So is super brave, creative, and inspiring person. So
he sounds incredible, and what a way to end. Definitely cheers to him. Very grateful that he influenced your journey that way, and thank you for sharing his story with us today. We're really, really happy about it. Cheers, Benny.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really fun. I finished my beer.
Excellent. Well done, well done. We really, really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, this has been Beers with VC episode 5. See you next month. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.